My twin sister, Isabella, was known as a saintly figure. As the university entrance exam drew near, she impersonated me and gave away my early admission spot. She told me I was so smart that I should yield the opportunity to a classmate who needed it more. Enraged, I resolved to ace the university exam to prove myself. But on the day of the test, she secretly stole my exam admission card, claiming she was afraid I'd submit my paper early and affect others' concentration. In the end, I struggled to get into the exam room, but my morale was shattered. I performed terribly. Afterward, I fell ill and had to take medication, while she trampled over my despair, once again becoming a great benevolent soul in everyone's eyes. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I received early admission. Eat a little more, don't be shy. This is imported chocolate. In class, Isabella was freely sharing a box of chocolates I'd saved my pocket money for an entire month to buy. My classmates gasped, hands reaching out from every direction. In a blink, the box was empty. They laughed and chatted. "It's so delicious. Isabella is so generous." Isabella smiled back. "It's what I should do, don't be shy with me." Hearing this familiar conversation, I was a little stunned. Hadn't I already died? Just then, Mr. Lee called me out. "Sophia, you won a gold medal in the provincial chemistry competition. I've already helped you apply to a university. The admission notice is expected tomorrow." In that moment, I couldn't help but accept the truth. I was alive again. "Sophia, don't just stand there. Go tell your parents the good news." I nodded quickly. Turning back, I saw Isabella standing at the office door. Her expression was calm, but a deep darkness lurked in her eyes. Mr. Lee waved her over. "Isabella, come here and share your sister's joy." She nodded, forcing a bland, fake smile, congratulated me with a few words, then left the office. But immediately afterward, she pulled me aside. "Honestly, with your ability, you could easily get into university through the exam. Why rely on early admission?" I watched her lips move, saying nothing, still reeling from the shock of my past life's death. Because before she pushed me into the abyss, making me fall from the building, she had said those very words. "It's precisely because you're too competitive that you've come to this." Seeing my silence, Isabella continued, "Our family always values integrity and fairness. Everything should be achieved through ability, not tricks. You should yield this early admission spot to a classmate who truly needs it." These words were exactly the same as in my previous life. Back then, I was foolish enough not to refute her. Now I let out a cold laugh, turning to look at her. "Are you sick? Just because you're a poor student, you accuse others of cheating? I earned this early admission spot with a gold medal, fairly and squarely. How does it become a trick in your eyes? Why don't you go directly change the school's regulations?" Isabella's face turned pale, speechless. I turned and strode back to the classroom. From childhood, she had always loved to play the good person, using my sacrifices to paint herself in a positive light. My lucky money, she'd immediately donate it to remote areas in her name. At dinner, if my bowl had meat, she'd give it to others, then scold me for being heartless. When I expressed dissatisfaction, outsiders always saw her as gentler and kinder than me. Only by exploiting me did she become an angel in everyone's eyes. In my previous life, after I got early admission, she secretly advised me to give up the spot to someone else. I refused. So that night, she drugged my food, causing me to have a high fever for 3 days and miss school. When I returned, I discovered my early admission spot had fallen into Daniel's hands, the second-rank student. I asked around and learned that during my 3-day absence, Isabella had feigned illness, then impersonated me to tell Mr. Lee that she was voluntarily giving up the early admission to give the opportunity to another student. Because she and I were identical twins and she could mimic my voice, Mr. Lee didn't suspect anything, only sighed regretfully. The early admission list was confirmed and nothing could be changed. I knew she gave away my early admission spot only to gain a good reputation and curry favor with Daniel, a rich young master. Clearly, Isabella intended to latch onto him. When I confronted Isabella, she feigned distress in front of the whole class. "Oh, sister, you're so smart. What's so hard about getting into university? Those who truly need early admission only have this one chance. Don't you think about them at all?" Daniel immediately jumped in to criticize me, saying I wasn't worthy, that I had hurt a kind person like Isabella. I was furious and decided to use my university exam scores to wash away this humiliation. But just one day before the exam, she secretly stole my admission card. I struggled greatly to get Mr. Lee's help to enter the exam room, but with my morale shattered, I performed terribly. I reported Daniel to the police, but she lured me to the rooftop and deliberately let Daniel push me off. I desperately clung to the ledge, tears of sorrow streaming down my face, begging, "Sister, please save me." But she just stood there with an innocent expression. "Oh, sister, this is the outcome you brought upon yourself. Who told you to be so cruel? If you had learned to sacrifice, you wouldn't be in this situation." I couldn't hold on any longer and fell, dying with my eyes wide open. The memories of my past life flooded my mind, filled with hatred. You like playing the saint? You like gaining reputation from my sacrifices? This time, I want to see what you'll use to play the saint without me to exploit. After school, I deliberately didn't go home with Isabella. I found a barbershop and told the owner with a cold voice, "Please shave my head into a buzz cut." The owner was startled, hesitated, and confirmed many times before finally understanding that I really wanted to cut off my long hair. The sound of the clippers whirring, chunks of hair falling. Each sound made my heart ache, but at the same time, it solidified my resolve for revenge. I had grown this hair for over 10 years. Today, I cut it all off just to get revenge on my enemy. But compared to what I had endured all those years of studying, what was a mere haircut? I cut my hair so Isabella could never impersonate me again. Finished, I immediately returned to school. I knew Mr. Lee hadn't left yet, so I secretly entered his office and called out, "Mr. Lee?" Mr. Lee was startled when he saw me. "Sophia?" I nodded, raising my hand to touch my buzzed head, calmly explaining, "Washing hair takes too much time. I wanted to save time for homework, so I shaved it all off." Mr. Lee's eyes widened in disbelief, but this was enough. From now on, no one would be able to confuse me with Isabella. Before going home, I deliberately bought a wig identical to my old hairstyle and put it on to avoid Isabella finding out. Arriving home, I immediately announced the good news about my early admission to my parents. They were overjoyed and threw a celebratory dinner. Everyone in the family was jubilant, except for Isabella. Her face was dark and extremely unpleasant to look at. After dinner, as I was in my room, Isabella brought in a glass of orange juice and said respectfully, "Sister, this is freshly squeezed orange juice. Please drink it." I glanced at her coolly. "Leave it there. I'll drink it later." She seemed to hesitate, but when she saw my icy gaze, she pursed her lips and backed out. I waited for her to leave the room, then quietly poured the entire glass of orange juice into a potted plant. When she returned and saw the empty glass, she finally let out a sigh of relief. The next morning, I feigned a stomachache, saying I couldn't go to school. Isabella immediately offered to go to school and ask for leave for me. I nodded, then secretly followed her. As soon as she arrived at school, the first thing Isabella did was find Mr. Lee to give up my early admission spot for me. I stood outside, took out my phone, and started recording. As she stood in front of Mr. Lee, he froze. "Isabella." Isabella cleared her throat, adjusted her voice, and said, "Mr. Lee, Isabella is taking a leave today. I am Sophia. I'm here to give up my early admission. I've made up my mind. If you don't agree, I'll call the university myself to refuse." But before she could finish, I walked in, my buzzed head gleaming. "Mr. Lee, Isabella has no right to make decisions for me, does she?" Isabella's whole body stiffened. She turned her head and jumped when she saw me. Mr. Lee sighed in relief. "Oh, thank goodness, Sophia, you're here. I thought something was strange. Did you just cut your hair? How dare your sister impersonate you?" I widened my eyes, feigning surprise as I looked at her. "Sister, how could you impersonate me to give up my early admission spot?" Isabella hadn't fully recovered from the shock of my buzzed head, stammering, unable to speak. I immediately sent the video I had just recorded to the class group chat. "My sister is so talented, daring to impersonate me to give away my early admission spot. Actually, she didn't need to go to such lengths. I never really intended to accept this early admission anyway." Mr. Lee severely scolded her, telling her to focus on her studies instead of playing underhanded tricks. He also assured me that he would absolutely not let me lose my early admission spot. Isabella cried and ran back to class. As soon as I entered the classroom, I immediately walked to the podium. my shiny, buzzed head under the astonished gazes of the entire class. I declared with determination, "I know some of you are unhappy about my early admission. So, I've decided to participate in the university entrance exam with everyone. If my exam score is lower than the admission cutoff for a university, I will automatically give up my early admission." My voice echoed through the classroom. The entire class fell silent, but their eyes looking at me had changed. Because I dared to face everyone squarely and say these words. Compared, Isabella looked even more like someone who resorted to underhanded tactics. In my past life, Isabella boasted in front of the whole class about how much effort she had put into convincing me to give up my early admission. But now, I used a video and directly confronted her. She always cared about her image. Who would have thought she'd lose face so spectacularly today? Someone couldn't help but speak up. "No wonder she's Sophia, what spirit. If you say so, we are completely convinced. And Isabella, who would harm their own twin sister like that?" Exactly. After all, this is the result of her own hard work. What right does she have to decide for her? Isabella usually seems so gentle and kind, but it turns out she's so cruel to her own sister. I looked down and saw Isabella's face alternating between red and white, tears falling heavily onto her desk. She choked up. "It's true that I made the decision for you without permission, but I only did it for your own good. You've misunderstood my intentions. This early admission came so unexpectedly. I only feel for the classmates who always work hard but don't get the chance to participate in the competition. If this spot were mine, I would definitely be willing to give it up." Seeing this, some people started to defend her, led by Daniel. After all, they're sisters. Isabella is just a good person. She just doesn't want her sister to be too competitive. Think about it, everyone knows Sophia always tries her best to get the early admission spot. She never thinks about other classmates. I responded to Daniel with a cold laugh. Indeed, some people, no matter how hard they try, can only come in second unless they restudy. Otherwise, they'll never get an early admission spot, right? Daniel heard my sarcasm and immediately flushed with anger. Just then, the bell for class rang, and Mr. Lee entered. I calmly returned to my seat. After all, the mask had been torn off. There would be many more opportunities to fight later. In the following days, I continued to focus on studying, not giving anyone a chance to exploit me. Isabella occasionally tried to talk to me, but I treated her like air. But there was another important matter. In my previous life, I had meticulously recorded many study notebooks. Yet, at the most crucial moment, Isabella used her name to share them with the entire class. When I went home to look for them, she had already given them to classmates, and they were even tattered and worn. I confronted her, but she acted annoyed. "My sister is so selfish. How can you hide such great study materials and not share them with everyone?" See, I took the trouble to compile the notebooks for everyone, and now you're making a fuss just because of a few torn notebooks. As soon as she finished speaking, the whole class immediately turned to scold me. This time, I absolutely would not give her that opportunity. In the middle of the night, I diligently took notes. With my past life's experience, I clearly remembered which types of questions had appeared on the exam. I even specifically compiled a secret guide to conquering the university exam and always carried it with me. Isabella couldn't help but ask, "Sophia, what are you writing? Can I see?" I gave her a sidelong glance and replied coldly, "Why should I show you? This is my secret university exam guide. I painstakingly compiled it. Inside are all valuable university exam question types. I even asked the teachers on the provincial exam board to provide some key question types for this year. I guarantee this year's exam questions will definitely come from here." Isabella's eyes widened in surprise. "Really? Is that true?" I smiled faintly. "Why ask? What do you think? I won first place in the competition. I'm warning you, don't even think about clinging to me. Even if you kneel and beg, I won't show you." With that, I turned and walked away. Isabella's eyes flashed with calculation. I knew she was definitely after my secret exam guide, but I deliberately acted wary, while actually always leaving it on my desk in my bedroom. Now, with only a month left until the university entrance exam, I had to be extremely careful, absolutely not making any mistakes. Even the water I drank every day, if it passed through someone else's hands, I wouldn't touch it. That evening, Isabella came into my room again, looking as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. I narrowed my eyes, looking at her cautiously. Are you secretly trying to put something in my food again? Get out. Isabella bit her lower lip, her voice sounding pained. Those were all misunderstandings before, Sophia. I sincerely want to apologize to you. I came here to help you organize your exam materials for tomorrow. Aren't you going to give me a chance to make amends? I kept a cold face, not letting her touch anything of mine. Isabella hesitated for a while, finally just leaving quietly. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. It seemed she went to wash her face. I didn't pay much attention, only realizing when I went into the bathroom to wash my face that the towel had a faint, sweet smell. I didn't think much of it, just assuming my mom had changed the fabric softener. That night, I slept an incredibly deep sleep. The next morning, I still felt a little hazy. After waking up, I checked my locked drawer, confirmed that my exam supply bag was still intact, and then felt relieved enough to go to the exam center. Isabella and I shared a car. Throughout the entire journey, she didn't say a word. I thought she was just disappointed because her plan had failed, but I had underestimated her cruelty. As I stepped into the exam room and took out my admission card, a chill ran down my spine. My admission card had been swapped. I took a deep breath. The card in my hand was a fake printout. The candidate number and photo were all wrong. If scanned, it would immediately be detected as fake. At that point, not only would I be implicated, but I could also be investigated by the Ministry of Education. What a truly malicious plan. I suddenly remembered that last night, Isabella hadn't given me any food, but she had gone into the bathroom. She must have put a sedative on the towel, making me sleep too deeply to hear her sneak into my room and take my admission card. While I was still stunned, the invigilator frowned and spoke up. "Student, where's your admission card?" I immediately hid the fake card. My eyes quickly scanned the exam room, and I saw Isabella and Daniel. What a coincidence, in my past life, I had also taken the exam in the same room as them. I took out my ID card and calmly explained to the invigilator, "I unfortunately lost my admission card, but I can use my ID card and candidate number to confirm my identity." After sorting it out, I glared directly at Isabella and Daniel, my eyes sharp as knives. I knew everything, and I would definitely repay them tenfold. Their faces turned pale. They surely hadn't expected that, having lived 2 lives, I was completely unfazed by this setback. In fact, remembering the past life's exam questions, I still performed well despite entering 30 minutes late. I wrote diligently, full of confidence. Pressure began to weigh on Daniel. I could even hear his anxious, hurried breathing, especially when this year's literature exam was exceptionally difficult. He had completely lost his composure. "Damn it!" Daniel hissed in anger, immediately warned by the invigilator. As for Isabella, she had been hoping I would fail, but in the end, it was she who suffered a mental breakdown. Throughout the entire exam, her hands trembled. For the literature paper, she was so stressed that she hadn't even finished her essay when the bell rang. I quickly left the exam room to get a new admission card reissued. After the second day of exams, I suddenly became famous throughout the school because many of my classmates were in the same exam room as me. All of them knew that Sophia had lost her admission card on the first day of the exam. Everyone was abuzz with discussions. Isabella and Daniel stood not far from me, their initial expressions quite grim, but when they heard the students whispering, they seemed a little more relaxed. Isabella deliberately stepped in front of me and said loudly, "Sister, you surely didn't do well on the exam this time, did you? Maybe just take a year off, restudy, and try again." Daniel also gave a cold laugh. "I think you probably know you don't have enough points to get into a university, so you deliberately swapped your admission card, wanting to use this as an excuse to skip the exam and just rely on early admission, right?" I remained calmly smiling. Around me, students were discussing animatedly. "She's so calm, how can she do well if she can't even keep her admission card? Well, she has early admission, she doesn't need to take the exam anyway. She'll still get into university easily. But didn't she say if her score didn't meet a university's standards, she'd give up her early admission? Ha, I bet she deliberately lost her admission card and will go back on her word now." Exactly. Someone recorded a video of this. If she dares to renege, we'll just upload the video online and expose her. I broke into a smile, my gaze fixed on Isabella. "You deliberately swapped my admission card, didn't you? To prevent me from entering the exam room? Exposed, Isabella didn't even bother to feign innocence anymore. I only wanted to protect the other students. Every time you deliberately submit your paper early, it affects other students' exam psychology, sister. You're too selfish. No matter how smart you are, someone without morals will eventually fail miserably. Her eyes were full of provocation, but I remained unshaken, because I knew they would soon be slapped in the face. In the following exam days, Isabella completely lost her composure and performed terribly. I, on the other hand, excelled. After the exams, everyone started estimating their scores. I, however, leisurely enjoyed my vacation, spending my parents' pocket money freely and having fun. Isabella, on the other hand, was extremely anxious and kept asking me, "How did you do on the exam? People have to keep their word, you know. You said if you don't meet a university's score, you'll give up your early admission. It's okay, you can retake it, just don't be too competitive." I looked at her and laughed coldly. "Don't rush. Let's talk after the scores are out. Don't you believe in fate? Then let's wait and see what my fate is." On the day the scores were announced, our whole family sat in front of the phone, anxiously waiting. Finally, the automated voice announced, English, 150 points out of 150. Natural Sciences, 300 points out of 300. Math, over 140 points. Literature, not bad. Total score, 709, which is 20 points above the admission cutoff for a university. I had crafted a perfect ending to my youth. Upon hearing the results, my parents leaped with joy. Only Isabella's face turned ashen as she slumped into her seat. I calmly posted my scores in the class group chat, then smiled and told my parents, "Don't celebrate too soon. We haven't checked Big Sister's scores yet." My parents came to their senses. Right, we need to check Luna's scores too. She's been so diligent lately. Maybe she'll get into a second-tier university. At this moment, no one noticed the wicked smile on my lips. Isabella clenched her hands, looking tense. My parents turned on the speakerphone so the whole family could hear her scores. Total score, 230. The living room suddenly fell silent. My parents' eyes widened in disbelief. No way, is there a mistake? No matter how bad she is at studying, Isabella's previous mock exam scores were around 400. How is it only a little over 200 now? Isabella was deeply shocked, covering her face and bursting into tears. Then she abruptly looked up, her eyes full of resentment, glaring at me. "It's all you're doing. Why did you harm me? Why did you do this?" Oh, not playing the saint anymore? I widened my eyes, intentionally mimicking her tone. "You say I harmed you. What did I do to you?" Isabella clenched her fists, her lips trembling. "It was you. That day you came late and kept staring at me. Your eyes were full of threats. I was so scared I couldn't even do the exam." I feigned surprise, widening my eyes. "What nonsense are you talking about? Can I even threaten people with my gaze? What kind of race is this? Or were you not focused on the exam and only looking at me? Were you trying to copy my paper but failed?" At this point, Isabella's brain completely froze. She didn't know how to explain, and the more she thought about it, the angrier she got, until her eyes rolled back and she fainted right there. My parents panicked and quickly rushed her to the hospital. I looked back at the class group chat. Everyone had started showing off their exam scores. Only Daniel was silent. A close friend secretly messaged me, "Daniel only got enough points for a second-tier university. His parents are beating him black and blue." I chuckled sarcastically. "Hoisted by your own petard. You tried to harm others, but you harmed yourself first before seeing any benefit." But I still had a debt to settle. I saved evidence from hidden cameras and submitted it to the police. I sued Isabella for swapping my admission card and deliberately sabotaging my exam. In fact, from the very first day after my rebirth, I had installed a tiny camera on my main study desk. All of Isabella's actions of sneaking into my room and stealing my admission card were recorded as clear as day. Now, she must have felt what it's like to be dragged from heaven to hell. But it still wasn't enough to repay the debt of my past life. Before I could make my next move, a group of angry people stormed into my house, getting straight to the point. "Isabella, you swindler, you took our money and didn't deliver. Come out here now." I was startled. It turned out Isabella had swapped my admission card not for herself, but for money. Only one person could be the top scorer, so many talented students from other schools wanted to stop me. They were afraid I'd score too high, so they bribed Isabella to sabotage my exam. Isabella, being greedy for money, naturally didn't refuse. But now that everything was exposed and I was clearly the top scorer, they came to demand their money back. They grabbed Isabella, demanding a full refund. Isabella was so scared she hid behind my parents, trembling. She glared at me with hatred, shouting, "It's all your fault. If you hadn't scored so high, they wouldn't have come to demand their money back from me. This is happening to me because of you. You have to pay them back for me." I looked at her, feeling utterly numb. Because Isabella was this kind of person. When I was harmed, she could pretend to be a saint and forgive others on my behalf. But when she herself was affected, when her interests were touched, she only knew how to blame me. The group of students presented audio and video evidence, demanding Isabella return the money. Otherwise, they would expose the whole truth online and ruin her reputation. But Isabella had spent all the money, not a single penny left. In the end, my parents gritted their teeth and paid off the debt for her. But as soon as they had paid, I immediately proceeded to sue Isabella for deliberately sabotaging my exam. My parents panicked and pleaded with me, "After all, your sisters, do you really need to go to such extremes?" I was silent for a moment, then gave a cold smile. "All right, I can withdraw the lawsuit, but she has to stand in front of the entire school, be recorded apologizing to me, and admit her mistakes herself." Isabella bit her lip, resolutely refusing. She threatened, "If you force me, I'll kill myself." My parents, afraid of making a big deal out of it, negotiated. "All right, then we'll compensate you for emotional damages. Just don't sue anymore." I happily accepted the money. After all, who would ever refuse money? Finally, I received my admission letter to a university, becoming a legend of the school. Because I truly embodied, Shi Li Zheng Dan, worthiness through true ability. Not only did I have early admission, but my university exam scores also surpassed the admission cutoff. Everyone was fully convinced and impressed. I casually sent a message to the class group chat. "See everyone, even if Isabella had taken my early admission spot, what would it have changed? I still deserve this university. And what about the person who used to be second in class, Daniel? Only 490 points? What a pity. If I had known, I would have given him my early admission spot back then." As soon as I finished speaking, the whole class gasped in astonishment. "Sophia, you're too kind. Is he really worthy?" If a university accepted someone with only 490 points, wouldn't they be furious? Actually, Daniel's academic performance was always mediocre. How could he have ranked second in the provincial chemistry competition? Did he bribe the teachers? Everyone began to discuss conspiracy theories. Of course, only I knew the truth. Daniel had indeed bought his award, but there was only one early admission spot that year. He was too ashamed and withdrew from the chat group. In my bedroom, I accidentally overheard a phone call between Daniel and Isabella. My parents had suffered a huge financial loss to resolve Isabella's mess. Soon after, they threw a party to celebrate my university admission. I held the red envelopes from relatives, happily enjoying myself. But when my eyes met Isabella's, I knew she wouldn't give up so easily. There were only a few days left until the end of summer vacation, and I would officially enroll in a university. During this time, Isabella was exceptionally well-behaved at home, like a shadow, not daring to do anything to me. Unlike my past life, I no longer tolerated her. Isabella also didn't dare to touch my belongings casually, knowing I was ready to make a big deal out of anything. My parents treated me like a treasure because I got into university, while she failed. Now, Isabella had to listen to my parents and prepare to restudy for a year. Daniel also failed. Both of them were now repeating a year, constantly together in the cram school. But only I knew something even more shocking. Isabella was plotting to steal my ID card and trick me into going to Myanmar to sell me to scammers. After all, it's vacation time, just trick her into going on a trip. Once we get there, I'll contact my senior in Myanmar. Just drug her and sell her, and it's done. Isabella laughed sinisterly. "What do you think will happen if the top student Sophia is taken to Myanmar and immediately forced to be a scamming employee?" Daniel laughed cunningly. "Sell her, and we'll get at least 100,000 yuan. If we sell her organs too, we'll get over 200,000. Isabella nodded. "Perfect. Contact them right away. Tell them to be ruthless with her, don't go easy." I took a cold breath. 3 days ago, I had secretly installed a listening device inside Isabella's phone case. Thanks to that, I heard their entire conversation. But for someone who had lived 2 lives like me, how could I let them succeed? I gathered all the evidence and submitted it to the police. The next day, Isabella pretended to be happy and invited me to travel. I feigned agreement and followed her to the train station. But just as she was about to put a sedative in my water, the police rushed in. I calmly watched her. She looked horrified to the side. Daniel had already been arrested by the police. When the police apprehended her, she even forgot to struggle, only staring at me with wide eyes. "Why did you call the police?" I smiled brightly. "If I hadn't called the police, wouldn't I have watched you fall beyond redemption? Your sister did this for your own good, Isabella." Isabella was so scared her face turned pale, but the evidence was irrefutable. She had no way to deny it. After the interrogation, Isabella and Daniel bowed their heads and confessed. The police followed the clues and dismantled the entire human trafficking ring in Myanmar. Thanks to my assistance in solving the case, I was commended for my courage. As for Isabella, she also became famous, but for all the wrong reasons. Her true colors were exposed to the public, despised by everyone. Her honor was lost, never to be regained. My parents tried to salvage the situation, but were powerless because Isabella had committed unforgivable crimes. They finally realized how unfairly they had treated me over the years. They wanted to make amends, but for me, it no longer mattered.